Welcome to the show, listeners. I am so happy to have you here today, and I'm going to use a word I haven't used since back in the 80s. I am stoked. I am so stoked today to have Laura Marie Rivera with us here. I met her recently at an event and instantly started introducing her as my new best friend. She has such an incredible pathway at arriving to where she's at today, and I love a good background story. She has some skills that I absolutely envy, and I just think it's really remarkable what she's created. She speaks straight from her heart, straight to mine, and I just feel like there's so much resonance in who she is and the work she's doing and what she has to say. So I know you're going to really, really love getting to know her. She's got some incredible insight and wisdom to share. And so I'm so thrilled to be able to talk to her selfishly so I can get to know her better and ask all the questions that I personally want to know. But I'm also just really jazzed that you get to be here with us and tune in. And I know you're going to get so much out of this. That being said, I'm going to introduce you to her and then we're going to dive right in. Dr. Laura Marie Rivera is a mother, author, and researcher who explores the powerful intersection of motherhood and leadership, developed through her decades of experience across education, advocacy, and the arts. Her doctoral research included nearly 1,000 mothers and challenged traditional leadership models by recognizing caregiving as a powerful training ground for leadership, a perspective she advances through her work as a co-author of Beyond the Pipeline, founder of Intuitionship, and host of the Motherhood Advantage. Laura, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And I just have to say, this is awesome. That is my probably favorite word from the 80s. And I'm not sure I ever let it go, but I find I'm using it a lot lately because there are so many things that I'm excited about. And this research and where I am on that path and the people, especially the women and the mothers that I am meeting, are just awesome. And I love what you said because it was such a chance encounter. And when I met you the other day, and it's a space that I also came to by chance. I was invited last year when I was running for office, and I discovered those amazing women and just the power and the company and the warmth. And I don't even know that I was ever missing it, but to experience it and be surrounded by that is just a really wonderful experience. And so the fact that you and I get to continue that and really get to know each other more and yes, hopefully be BFFs and part of each other's lives, that is the most amazing part of my research and all that I've been doing. There's just so much awesomeness. I love it.
Yeah, having somebody that can set the stage for an event like that, right, where you're having genuine connections, or has a lot to say about hosting the event. I'm down there at Armoire in Seattle. Shout out to them. They do incredible work and host a lot of really wonderful events in their community, which I think is powerful, right? Just making really good use of their space and building community, which is, what you're naturally doing through the research that you've done, is you found this way to quantify valuable leadership skills in motherhood. Like, this is what I find is so fascinating, right? You had a belief and then you found a way to quantify this belief, and you're calling it the Motherhood Advantage. I know that's the name of your podcast, but I think that encompasses the body of work.
It really does.
That you create. If you could tell us a little bit about what that is. What is the Motherhood Advantage?
Yes, please. I don't want to go all the way into the weeds with all of this, but I was working on my Doctor of Education at Seattle University, and I didn't know exactly what I was going to focus on, but it just became clear as I was working through. So I was about halfway through the program, and I was working with two other mothers of four, which I have 4 children, and it is a small club of women who have 4 children. And so that was a fun connection for us. But our project was on leadership humility. And as we were reading the book and writing the paper and doing all of the things, it occurred to us, like, they're describing the role of mother in all of these leadership things, and the skills and the traits that we want to have in the leaders in the paid workplace are all of the same things that mothers are doing at home. It's just that no one is noticing and they're not being paid for that work. And at that
Mm,
point, we started to look back at our other readings, our other assignments, even our classroom discussions, and really realizing that motherhood had not been discussed at all in this leadership program. And, that was a little irritating when we figured that out. And then we started really looking for it. And in those academic discussions and in a lot of the leadership discussions at Fortune 500 companies and everywhere else, they're not talking about motherhood. And in fact, when you Google motherhood and leadership, what comes back is the motherhood penalty. And it is just
mm.
pages and pages about that. And so we decided we were going to look at the strengths and skills that mothers bring to the paid workplace. And that is exactly what we ended up quantifying in that research. We devised a mixed method study. And for the survey, like you said, we had nearly 1,000 participants. And when I started talking about the research and telling friends, relatives, acquaintances, I talk about it a lot. Um, People were genuinely interested and they were asking me questions. I had neighbors dropping off books that they've read and that they wanted to talk about and things they wanted me to ask. And it really became quite a community builder for me. And also, that is all poured into the dissertation. And so we spent a year doing all of that. And it is 220 pages of academic research, dissertation writing. And anybody that would like to take a look at exactly what we did and how we did it, it is available for free. We published it on ScholarWorks and it is available for free. And I'm happy to share, happy to answer questions. But that's what we were looking at. What leadership strengths and skills from the paid workplace are mothers also using in the home? And do they translate?
Okay. I already know that this is like setting off a lot of like light bulbs for a lot of women that are listening to this. I know it is for me. Even if you've taken time off work or you're a mother and you're trying to re-enter the workforce, no matter how long the time in between has been, or maybe you've never been in the typical traditional workforce. And how yeah, the motherhood penalty, right? It's not seen as a skill set. It's often something that we try to like other out of our life. Well,
Yes.
that's separate. It's not going to affect my work. It's not going to affect my availability. I'll be on call. I can do all the things. And somehow I'm just going to keep this family at bay over here while I be a good, productive, contributing member of society in this other way. And it's asinine. It's crazy making. Like, that's actually not true. What if we could look at this in the way that you framed it as the advantage where we're looking at this as a high quality individual who is able to contribute, who has all these wonderful skills and perspectives to bring to the table. What if we were honoring this where women
Yes.
weren't trying to separate
Yes.
this, but also our environments were set up to say, hey, this is great. We've got a mom on board. Let's ask her what she thinks.
That is what we are hoping for because yes to all of that. And, it is silly to pretend that your life is going to be the same or your paid work is going to be the same after you've had a child. It changes everything. And the truth is, yes, you have these additional responsibilities and activities happening outside the paid workplace, but it also changes you and you get so much better at so many things. And, when you learn to prioritize and when you learn to I don't know, diagnose what was that cough? What was that cry? All of those things, you become so attuned to all of those little details. And there's really so much to be learned in the motherhood sphere. And talk about, negotiation skills. Have you ever tried to reason with a toddler? Communication skills. Have you ever tried to, you tell your child to go do this thing and they go and do something and you realize, oh, that's not quite what I meant. And so you reiterate and you learn and you get back. And the communication skills are amazing. And the resilience that our mothers face is incredible. And we do all of this and, managing chaos and that kind of stuff in the workplace. I don't know how you describe motherhood if not managing chaos, but moms are doing it all. Again, they're just not getting paid.
Yeah. When we hear about moms entering the workforce, the conversation I hear most is how can we make accommodations for moms, right? Which is all true. but it's still not coming at it really from an empowering way. Like, yes, we understand that now you have a family and we're going to accept it, right? So now
Yeah.
maybe we're not asking you to keep it at bay, but we can accept it and tolerate it in these certain ways where,
The
we
bare
understand we can be
minimum
flexible
acceptance.
with your hours and you might need to go to a doctor's appointment here or there. But I really love this because we're really looking at it as a valuable skill set to bring to the table. And I feel like motherhood and other challenges in life could absolutely be
Yes,
applied this way.
yes.
I mean, I know when I came back after work from my breast cancer diagnosis, it was much the same thing. And I thought, I learned so much through what I just went through. I can actually like tell you what's really important, but you become really good at prioritizing. And I think some of those skill sets that we learn through life experience absolutely should affect who we are and how we show up at work. I don't want to lose that part of myself
No.
when I
And
show up.
yeah, like the prioritizing, sure. And also just the logistical challenges of, getting your child to where the place is, packing the bag, having the supplies, making sure they're clean and ready to go and the right size and the right season or the right sport or all of those things. It's just the constant lists and the running and the logistical force of motherhood is huge. And again, it's not something that people are necessarily looking
Mhm,
at. So one of our main goals is about transforming that narrative and really thinking about the way we view and, yes, appreciate motherhood, but also even just the language around it. We talk about a maternity break, and for anyone that has had a child, there is no break. On a maternity break, you've gone to working 40 or 50 or even 60 hours of work a week to working literally 24/7. And not only are you working around the clock, but one of the things that we didn't even think about when we started this, but it came out of our interviews, we talked about the physicality of motherhood because it really is nonstop and you are doing things. You just
mhm.
go, 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 go. But the other underlying one was we also don't talk about the fact that mothers literally grow and birth their children. And so there are leaders in the workplace that do lots of physical jobs and some even physically protecting the team, but it is a little bit different than physically growing another person and being the sole person in charge of them. For the most part, that is what mothers are doing throughout the day or throughout the night, whenever. And it just goes unsaid that
Mhm.
massive transformation, actual creation of life is just
Yeah.
totally unmentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, the sacredness of it and of the body that, is doing this. It's another part that we aren't really discussing when we come back, as they say. You know, we always have to come back. What if I didn't have to just disassociate
Right.
all the time?
Right. And so and that's another piece of it too, is like it's not about getting back or whatever. How about let's go forward? And
Mhm.
it's been making the headlines in the past few weeks. Matricence is a word that I didn't know until I was into this journey and I read a book with that same name. And if you think of adolescence, and it is a phase
Mhm.
that every adult has gone through, right? And you think of all of the changes, the hormonal and even the community and all of the changes that happen in adolescence. And
Mhm.
the same thing is happening as a woman is becoming a mother. And of course, we know the physical changes, but also your brain chemistry changes. Obviously, your hormones are changing and your whole community is changing as well. And so then your whole life is changed going forward. But then there's that little box of paid work. And is it the same? And it's just not. It's a whole new, I would argue, better person. And yes, you're maybe splitting some of your time and attention with other things,
Mhm.
but the growth and accomplishment that is motherhood is completely being overlooked.
Yeah, the evolution of the woman, of the person, of the human, right? I mean, isn't that what we're all supposed to be as growth oriented and evolving. And what's some of the words that I hear in the conference rooms, right? Like continuous improvement and all the things. Like, I mean, what are we doing if we're not evolving? And so
Right.
let's
Well, I know,
celebrate
and
that.
of course, there's the nurturing piece of motherhood, and that's one that I feel mothers are genuinely given on a regular basis. And nurturing your team at work is also valid and important. But when you talk about every single thing that you teach a small child, and it's literally everything, they know nothing when they're born. And we have these mothers teaching all of that. And we don't call it mentorship, but it absolutely is. And again, it's all these things
Hmm.
that mothers do usually naturally in the home and how they translate and benefit our paid workplaces. And it's just lining up those ideas, those leadership terms, and those accomplishments so that people can see that they're happening on both ends of that spectrum.
I love this. I have a topic for another episode, which is feminine mentorship, because I don't think we actually have figured that out yet. Like there's some of it happening, but that is another topic that I think is really, it hasn't really been available to a lot of women, is mentorship in for each other in career and in life outside of the home.
I would
I
agree.
mean,
And that has
yeah.
been, I mean, there have been a lot of really amazing, unexpected benefits with this work, but being in community with other amazing women and mothers, and especially not just hanging out or whatever, but really seeing them as individuals and accomplished individuals and all of the things that they do has been a real gift for me. And it's the same as when I met
Hmm.
you. We were in that room with amazing women. And you mentioned Armoire, which is that clothing rental service, and it's based here in Seattle. And they open their storeroom to facilitate those community meetings. And
Hmm.
I love that, and that is what I'm trying to do with bringing people together with the research and with the podcast, and even when I just invite people into my home. Sorry, I tend to go off on a ton of different things, but
I am
part
here for
of
it. Let's go.
the research was amazing, and we did it, and it was done, and yay. But the truth is, as robust as it was, I want to talk to more mothers, and I want to have more data and just more going forward. And so I founded a nonprofit called Intuitionship. And that is how I plan on, bringing more people together and funding that research to go forward because, see the landscape out there. Women are already excluded from so many things and historically excluded from even medical trials. And now they're rolling back like women's groups and the paid workplace, and there's no funding for research or anything else. So we knew that we had to go private if we wanted to continue these things. And it is a
Hmm.
nonprofit. So I'm hoping that I will have more people hearing about it and believing it and supporting it so that we can go forward and provide the numbers and the data that we all need to be able to see it and to be able to show because there are so many people that you know, they had a mother, they may have been married to a mother, and they still refuse to really recognize all of that. So we want to be able to show in black and white what it is mothers are doing, what those skills are, and how they translate to the paid workplace. And part of that is building that community. And whether that's when I get to talk with you or a whole amazing group of women, or hopefully someone is hearing about this for the first time and will head to our website, or maybe they have a mother that they would like to recommend for an interview for our ongoing research.
Yeah.
It is all built together. And there are just so
Hmm.
many amazing mothers out there. I would love to talk to them all.
I so resonate with this. I think that was largely how I ended up starting my nonprofit as well. This is, again, one of those synergies that you and I have. And it literally started as me just wanting to talk to more women. Like, I got to hear their stories. They were fascinating. It backed up some of the beliefs and some of the hunger and the desire I had for community. And I think I know actually that like this is how the future is shaped. Like, this is
I
how we
sure
get
hope
through this
so.
next chapter. It's community. It is us coming together, however and wherever we find it. I think finding the community builders is key, doing what you're doing what I'm doing, what Mars doing. I think not only is it offering an incredible amount of hope when we open up our phones or read the news or turn on the TV where everything looks like it is just completely falling it apart. We're moving backwards in time, things that we fought years for are being stripped away. And yet we come together in these communities, and I'm meeting really incredible people. And I thought, well, not on our watch. There's some really cool people out here doing some really powerful, intentional work, making great strides, really looking after each other, really linking arms with other people, other women, and making real difference and real changes in our immediate communities that are having a national impact. So I think that we can't discount the power of small connections and community. I honestly think that that's where it's at right now. And I want to point out that you've done all of this as a mother and as a fairly young mother. Like, your children were young when you turned your focus. You started out as, I believe, as a dancer and then went to school for your Doctor of Education and then did a dissertation.
Had a few careers over the years.
Yeah. I mean, I think many of us have, but that is a big leap to say, okay, I'm going to go after this thing. I would love to just sort of hear a little bit about that transition from you,
Well,
because
yes,
it's big.
I'll say, yes, my life before kids was very, very different. And there are some days when I walk through life as just me and I think about the me that existed before. And I mean, I used to dance in Broadway productions and I would get dressed up and the lashes and the lipstick and I was in top physical form and it was a really fun job. I mean, that was an amazing, and it was a career. It was the whole thing. And there are women that have kids and go back to that. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And our life has taken us all over the country in a million ways. But some days, as I just feel invisible in the world, I would like to say, hey, I used to do these things. I used to all of that. But what it makes me realize is that everyone was someone else before they were a parent. And it's a real reminder to me because sometimes I really do feel the difference or even the loss. But everyone was different in whichever ways. And you know the person of today, but you don't necessarily know how that was before. And that's one that I try to keep with me because there's a lot that goes into, I don't know, what you see, how people got there, and even how they think.
Yeah. As if going back to school wasn't enough, you started a nonprofit. And so I'm curious if you could just tell us a little bit about the mission for the nonprofit. I am also just curious personally, when that was founded pretty recently, right?
Yes. So I finished my doctoral degree last summer, dissertation done, graduation, everything. And like I said, we knew that we wanted to continue the research. And so I started everything, the paperwork and the process of starting my own nonprofit. I have worked in many nonprofits throughout my career, but I have never founded one. So there's a learning curve there. And I got the paperwork started, but then of course there was the government shutdown in the fall. And so that was obviously on hold for quite a while. And then once it was up and running, it's still a waiting game because it can take months or years for that to go through, or it can take weeks. But it ended up just in the beginning of the year in January, we got our official nonprofit status and our 501c3. And so that was all set. Well, for the next iteration of our research, we want to do bigger and better and more inclusive and more representational. So we set the goal of 10,000 survey participants and 100 interviews. And I did all of the interviews for the first version of the research. And when I started thinking about going from 10 to 100 and the logistics of it all and how you record it and how you notate them and everything else, I was like, if we're going to be recording this anyway, why don't we podcast these? And so I'm really excited about it because even though I know nothing about podcasts, here I am. This is actually the first time I've been a guest on a podcast, and we've recorded a whole season of our podcast. And so I'm learning a lot as you go. So I accidentally started a podcast, and it's really amazing because I get to spend time with these wonderful mothers and I get to hear from them, and we get to have our research questions answered, as is the
Mm.
official point of the podcast. But the other thing that we get to do is highlight what makes these mothers amazing leaders. What is it that they do in their life? What is it? What are their accomplishments? What do they care about? And how do these things all go together to make their families better, their companies better, and really all of our communities better? So it has been a really unexpected gift for my life.
Genius move, first of all. I love a genius move. I'm like, this
Accidentally
woman is
genius.
so
Yes.
smart. I love this. Just good thinking, right? Good thinking. I love this. And yeah, why wouldn't we all want to listen in on that and learn from each other? And what powerful episodes. I've definitely tuned into several of them, and there are some phenomenal women. But I think there's so much we can all connect with in each other's stories, and there's something so powerful about that. And that's what starts to create the connection and the community and the possibility of like where we can go with this, and just the level of confidence that it builds, like just opening up the conversation and recognizing those skills within ourselves and really owning them in a different way that we haven't really given ourselves permission to do before. I
You
love
you never
this.
know what you are capable of until you do it. And I think every mother realizes that after they have a child. And whether you're approaching, another child or a new job at work, whatever it is, you don't really know until you know. And so this has been a really great learning experience for me. And Lisa, I'm also hoping that you will come and join us on the podcast at some point,
My
because I know that
God.
your listeners know about your journey and the nonprofit that you started. And it's really important work that I have to say I was completely unaware of until I met you and
Mm,
heard about what you're doing. And I just think, again, we need women calling attention to these women's issues and letting the rest
yeah.
of us know. Because, I mean, again, I met you by chance and I learned something I had no idea about. And whether or not I'll need to know it, or one of my friends will need to know it, or my own daughters will need to know it, it's important work.
Hmm.
And so I just love seeing what other people are out there doing. And I hope you will
Mm,
join us to tell us all about it over on Motherhood
my gosh.
Advantage.
I would be so delighted and so honored. And I love being the host of somebody's first time on a podcast also. So I just want to shout you out. I did not know that. And so I love that you're here. And thank you for doing this with me today. But also, absolutely, I would be so excited to be a part of your show. I really love what you're doing over there and would be so excited to support it and be part of it. Just so incredible. I'm curious how old your kids are today, because motherhood, we're talking about it, right? Like in the beginning, but it is changing. So your skill set is also constantly changing from when
Yes.
you've got a toddler to when you've got a 5-year-old to then you
Yes,
are now you're raising. So the second you think you've figured it out, it changes again. So I'm curious how old your kids are today.
exactly. Talk about that learning curve. And just when you think you're the expert at whichever level, now you're at a different level. And so I have 4 kids, and my oldest is 21, and my second is 19. And then I have twins that are 10. And so I don't know. We have a little bit of all types of chaos, I think, at all times at our house. I remember I people ask me weird questions all the time. When you are pregnant, people ask really weird things, but if you walk around with 2 babies, it is amazing the inappropriate and just wow questions people ask. I have to tell you, this one morning I
I was
had
going to
made
say,
it.
let's hear a couple of them.
I mean, This is by far the worst, I think. But we have these chats on twin groups, and it's just incredible. But so this one morning, again, my kids were 8 and 10 when the twins were born. And so we would get up and get everybody dressed, lunches made, out the door to school. And then I had 2 newborns all day long. And this day I had made it out to Target, which was such an accomplishment in itself just to go somewhere.
That's a big deal.
And I appreciate because, of course, they have all the things that you could need, and they have food things, and they had clothing things, including nursing tank tops for mom. I spent a fair amount of time and money there. But what they also had was the coffee shop at the front of the store. And so it was really all things. And I was sitting there, and, it's tough to take a baby out in public, and it's tough to take 2 babies out in public. And if you need to feed those babies, and I was exclusively breastfeeding at the beginning, and it's not easy. So I don't even know which baby I had in my arms at that second, but one was in the stroller, comfortable, and one I was nursing, and then eventually I would switch and whatever. And you learn how to feed 2 babies by yourself when you have twins. Again, one of those things you never knew you could do until you had to do it. So I'm
Right.
sitting there nursing my baby, and I was fairly comfortable doing that in public because you just do what you do. And this woman comes in, and it's actually with her adult daughter, and she's like, "Oh, is that twins?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Is that a boy and a girl?" I'm like, "Hmm." And then she goes, "Oh, you're done. You can get your tubes tied." And I was like, "Lady." And I was so proud of myself in that moment because I just didn't even say anything. I just looked at my nursing baby and whatever. And I think she kind of realized what a weird thing that was to say, and especially from across a coffee shop. And I think she murmured,
Yeah.
"Oh, I shouldn't have said that." Or I don't know. But I was like, wow, because you really just get all the thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is exciting, right, when you do see 2 babies, right?
Mhm.
So it probably also makes people's nervous systems just go wild and weird things start coming out of their mouth.
Yes,
Like, no, you
yes,
don't need
yes,
to say
yes.
everything you're thinking. And it's hard because they are so endearing, right, as a passerby. But
Yes.
remember that that what it took to get to that coffee shop,
I
like there's
know.
a
It
mom
was so
behind
much
those
too.
twins.
So
Like,
much.
it's just so much, and you're just like, "Yeah, okay." Can I just I would
Yeah,
just like to find a way to get that coffee cup that is right in front of me over here to my mouth somehow because my hands are really full.
I know. Yes, it was a lot. And I know, because I don't even remember what you asked me, but like the spacing of my kids, I will say, wasn't really necessarily what I planned. And a lot of people have questions about that too when they see older kids and babies. And I just think, wow, do you know you said that out loud? But that's okay. And my mom, who my mom had 5 children and was an emergency room nurse, and I can't even begin to guess how she did what she did. And she's not a particularly poetic or maybe sensitive person, but I know that there was one day when the kids were pretty little, and the twins were born when I was living in California, and that's the only time I've had family close by in all of my parenting journey was for 1 year when they were born. And so she would come and visit us about once a week and spend the day with us, and maybe she would help me go to the store or just hang out or hold a baby, or it's that community that every mother should have. I just hadn't had it before. But one day when she was over, I was lamenting like the age spread because I had these newborns and I had an 8 and a 10-year-old. And it's difficult to do all of the things for all of the children and just trying to do and be everything. And I was worried about that gap in between. And she said, "Well, I believe that each baby comes along when they're supposed to come along. Anytime you have the baby is the right time to have that baby." And it was just a beautiful way to say it. And it was really important for me to hear. And I was also so surprised and impressed because that wasn't what I was expecting to hear from my mother. And it was really neat. And that's one of those ones that stays with me. So sometimes You get really good comments too.
Yeah, those ones are worth hanging on to. Oh, I
Mhm.
love that. Make a little collection of really wonderful things people have said. That'll be
You're
the next
right,
project.
and there have been so many wonderful things. I mean, all my kids were beautiful babies. I know that we all think that, and I love that we all get to be right.
Mhm.
My kids are the most beautiful creatures in the world, in my opinion, and I keep
Yeah.
that with me, and I am happy for every other mother that keeps that with them. But people do really it's surprising and fun and I guess interesting when twins come by, and yeah, people would light up, and it's fun.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Talking about motherhood and the motherhood advantage and sort of that sense of self and identity. I think we go through it multiple times as women, right? Whether we've had children or not, different phases of motherhood where we feel more seen. You talked a little bit about that in your transition, not just in careers, but in motherhood as well, from being a dancer who is in a very visible role in a certain way.
Yes.
That sense of identity, right? And maybe a little bit of loss, right? Because you're gonna constantly be evolving, but also letting go of some parts of you and as you shift and evolve what's important to you, and this being the Sacred Purpose podcast and allowing yourself to let those parts of you evolve. I'm just curious a little bit about what that was like for you, but how, for women that are having trouble embracing this evolution, right? Like what would you have to say about that? I don't even know if it's advice or what helped you navigate some of that.
Well, what comes to mind is I don't know that I have the right words, but I will say in hindsight, it looks a lot different. And when you're in the thick of it, I'm not sure what would have been the right thing to hear or say to help with that. But when I look back at that huge evolution that was necessary and I believe a great thing. It's difficult in sometimes in those short pieces in the interim. And you called out the much more visible role that I had in my previous career. Motherhood, there are huge leadership aspects, but a lot of that is supporting. And so many of the jobs that we do, if they're done correctly, you don't even know that they happened. And so whether that's something tangible like the laundry, like those dirty clothes are magically clean and folded and disappear, put away, or whether it's supporting your kid and, getting them the speech lessons that they need, identifying that need, helping get them and building that confidence and those skills so that they can go out into the world and accomplish everything that they're meant to do. Just that invisibility versus the visibility. And really, gosh, I'm trying to remember the way you said it, and I'm assuming you didn't do that on purpose, but one of the structures of our research, there are a million leadership theories out there, and I absolutely believe that you can draw parallels between any leadership theory and motherhood. But for the purposes of our dissertation, our advisor very smartly had us set limits because, we could be doing this and writing this for years and never finish the
Yeah.
dissertation and get the degree. So we put parameters so that we could accomplish that. And we chose 4 leadership theories.
Mm,
The trait theory, skills, adaptive leadership, and transformational leadership. And you
mm,
just described it when you were talking. And in order to transform into that newer, better leader, there are things that you have to leave behind. And that is definitely the same thing for people and specifically parents and mothers as they go forward, because you're just not the same person. You may fit into the same jeans or go back to the same paid work or whatever it is that you want to do, but you are a new person. And so that transformational aspect, it really side by side encompasses mothers. I don't know exactly how you would say it, but as we were going through and, looking at all of these different theories and then all of the data and all of the insights that we collected from these mothers, it led us to our own theory that we are working on. And we call it Mother Leader Intuitionship. And that is where we got the name for the nonprofit. And
I love it.
thank you. I mean, mothers are out there, they're doing all of this. And part of it is intuition. And sometimes people talk about the magic of moms, but the truth is it's hard work and you're doing it every day, whether that's, rocking your baby, learning like what it is that they need, how you respond to that, what exactly is the right rocking, how much is the much milk, like all of those things that you are researching and learning on a daily basis. And then forecasting, because whether it's the nap schedule or those things, you can actually plan it in advance, and you may not solve every problem, but there are a lot of them that you can solve before you start. And even what you said earlier about everything, that ever changing landscape that they like to talk about in business, that is what kids are, as they are growing and changing and learning every day. And so whether it's, having the right shoes in the closet so you can do the thing that you're going to need to do, or it's building that next new skill or whatever it is, from the little tiny newborn helpless infant up into, I sometimes like to call them levels. And, we're at level 21 at our house. And
Mhm.
parenthood, it doesn't stop being hard. It's very, very different now. But, and, you get to enjoy these little people as adults and conversations and experience them in a whole new way. But always changing, always learning. And that transformation, I mean, maybe it never stops. Maybe that really is the
Mhm.
evolution of life and motherhood and parenthood and leadership. Maybe that's the secret of the world.
Yeah, I don't think it ever stops. It hasn't for me in any case. I think if you're open to the evolution, it's just gonna keep giving you more ways to learn and grow,
Yes.
and sometimes get the same lessons again and again, as they like to cycle through. I could go in again on a whole other topic here, which is intuition. I I'm gonna try to just keep it down to one question because it's a topic that I spend half of my career coaching women through, and intuition and trusting intuition and having that sense of self-trust and allowing ourselves to really hear what wants to come through us. I think that right now and community are key, especially as feminine bodied beings who are so connected to life force energy and giving life and the next generation. And all the ways that mothers and women show up. And I think our intuition is a really, really important part of it,
I
and
agree.
trusting our intuitive voice within. And so I'm really curious to hear how that comes out in your research or in your conversations with women. Do you find that they find it more easy to trust their intuition or even recognize it as intuition in motherhood versus when they're showing up at work? Or maybe they feel like that's a part of themselves that they don't bring to work, or they do, or I'm I'm just curious to hear what the crossover is or what those conversations have been like.
So that is a fantastic question. And I have to say that I have to answer it from two ways, because I feel it. And there are a lot of things in life. Sometimes you just sort of know and you don't really, but you actually did. And so I noticed that in my life a lot of times. And when I started on this path with this research, I didn't really know where it was going, but I kind of did. And it has snowballed out of control, some might say, but has really become a huge part of my life and my purpose and my work. Maybe you don't know that when you're starting a dissertation, but it was always kind of there. And when we got to work on the actual research, I also had some inklings and guesses about what we might find about those parallels between motherhood and leadership. And our chair, our advisor, was very clear about you cannot do research if you already know the answer. And so we phrased our questions in things that we did not know and could explore. Throughout those interviews that, again, I just loved, we had agreed to, my dissertation partner is, I would say, more conservative and a more linear thinker and much more organized, and just was the amazing partner that I needed in this work. And the chair, again, looking at the doable portion of the dissertation, suggested we could probably do 3 or 4 interviews, and that would be sufficient. That is what a lot of dissertations do. And I knew we didn't want to do that. And I got my partner to agree to probably 5 or 6, knowing full well that I wanted it to be more. And so then we kind of agreed to 7 or 8. And then I accidentally did interview 9 and I really loved them, and each conversation came away with something that we had not been expecting and was just so like, again, they're things that you kind of know, but you've never talked about or really looked at that way. So it was such a gift. And my last interview, I read a blog post online, and this mom just was so amazing. And I messaged her, and to my surprise, she messaged me back. And then we set up this interview very quickly. I think it ended up being the next day. And we were also getting down to where we really needed to be working on the results and the writing of the dissertation. So it was all down to the wire. And we had set interview questions, as was agreed upon with the IRB and in the dissertation process. And we went through all of those. And it wasn't until the very end of the conversation, just in kind of wrapping up and other things, that we got to the meat of intuition. And she is a mom. She's a mom of 3. And the second, or 2 and 3 were twins. And one of her twins had serious developmental problems, and they didn't quite know what it was, and it was difficult to diagnose. And she kind of knew it early on. Just she had already had one daughter, and then she literally had a twin. And even though they all meet the milestones at different times, you kind of get a sense, and you have that worry, and you have those questions. And so she knew kind of early on, and it took a while for her daughter to officially be missing the milestones and for the pediatrician to be officially concerned and start investigating. And even after they started investigating, they did not have answers. There were all these things. They had no answers. And I feel like we know so much in the medical community today, but then you
Yeah.
get to one of those things and you find out, oh, there's so much more we need to know. And so she kept going for those answers. And when her daughter was, I don't know, maybe 3, I can't remember exactly the details, but the pediatrician flat out told her, her Harvard educated expert doctor told her that, her daughter she wasn't going to be able to go to kindergarten. She was never going to live on her own. She was never going to be able to do all of these things that, we're all hoping for our kids. And
Yeah. Right.
even though they didn't have the whole thing figured out, he knew that she needed to change her expectations because none of those things were going to be possible for her child. And she did not take no for an answer. And she kept looking into it, kept looking for answers, kept looking for things. And, there were little clues here and there. And I asked her at the end, I'm like, well, how did you know? And she didn't know, but she described that intuition, and she described her own gut feelings and her ideas about the universe, which really spoke to me. But she kept at it, kept asking those questions, kept helping her child with each of those little things that was maybe months or even years delayed, but she kept working on it. And fast forward to now, and her daughter went to college on a music scholarship. And
Oh my God.
again, how did she know? And how did she do that? And it was her intuition, and she knew she was not going to let this doctor put limits on her child. And whatever the future held, she didn't know what it was, but she was going to do everything she could to help her child, and she did.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's such a powerful story. Like, you really can't discount what a mother knows or what a mother feels
Yes.
or the effort, right? That connection, right? That she just knew that there was a way for this child and was not going to give up
Exactly.
and found the way, right? Like, no matter how messy it got, which I know it's never straightforward, right? It's not like, I'm sure there was a lot of up and right. And so I think like that's maybe one of the biggest things that I learned as a mom is like, or even anything, right? Like, it's never this straight trajectory. It's like, how do you maintain a sense of fortitude or that North Star that you're going towards, even when you're not even sure what that is, in all the ups and downs, when you've just got some sort of belief carrying you through? Because sometimes that's all you have is just this core
Yeah.
belief.
And you just have to. Like, there's not
Yeah.
really an alternative.
Yeah. Oof, I love this. I could go on quite literally. I would just love to ask before we close out this conversation, because I know we will have so many more, if there's anything else you want to leave the listeners with today.
No, I just appreciate this opportunity, and it's obviously something I am so passionate about. If anyone has questions for me or suggestions or recommendations, I am super available online either through motherhoodadvantage.com or intuitionship.com. And I'm even on the socials. Come find me, and I do want to hear from you. There are
Mm.
just so many incredible mothers, and we want to include as many stories and accomplishments as possible.
Yes. Oh, I love this so much. We'll leave all those links in our show notes for the listeners, and there'll definitely be more to come. And of course, they can find you over at the Motherhood Advantage on your podcast for lots more.